Hello, Lobbert here. Please consider giving this video a like and subscribe for more Pauper Commander content. If you'd like to support what I'm doing here, I'd love it if you became a patron. There's a link in the description to skip the player and commander introductions. Going first is Wales. Going second is Scooby-Drew, playing Finhorn Brownie's list. Going third is Alcadron, a Pauper Commander Rules Committee member and one of the hosts of the PDH Pod podcast. And going fourth is me, Lobbert. Wales is playing Tor Wauki the Younger, a 3/3 human archer for 3 black-red, with reach, lifelink, and if another source you control would deal non-combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +1 to that permanent or player instead. It also has, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Tor Wauki the Younger deals 2 damage to any target. Scooby-Drew is playing Phyrexian Censor, a 3/3 Phyrexian wizard for 2 and a white, with each player can't cast more than 1 non-Phyrexian spell each turn, and non-Phyrexian creatures enter the battlefield tapped. Alcadron is playing Esior, Boardwing Familiar, a legendary 1/3 bird for 1 and a blue, with flying, and spells your opponents cast that target 1 or more commanders you control cost 3 more to cast. It also has Partner, so Alcadron is also playing Keleth, Sunmane Familiar, a legendary 1/1 horse for 1 and a white, with whenever a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and Partner. Lobbert is playing Mumuring Mystic, a 1/5 human wizard for 3 and a blue with, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue bird illusion creature token with flying. Each player keeps 7, and the game begins. Wales draws for turn, plays a swamp, and passes. Scooby-Drew draws, plays a plains, and passes. Alcadron draws a card, plays a tapped glacial floodplain as his land, and passes. Lobbert plays an island and Aether Spellbomb. He passes. Wales draws a card, plays a mountain, and Thermo-Alchemist. Wales passes. Scooby-Drew draws for turn, plays a plains, and Arcane Signet. He passes. Alcadron draws, plays a plains, and his commander, Esior, Wardwing Familiar. Alcadron passes. Lobbert draws a card, plays a desert as his land, and enchants Thermo-Alchemist with Stasis Field to make it a 0/2 defender with no abilities. He passes. Wales draws, plays a mountain, and Arcane Signet. He passes. Scooby-Drew draws a card, plays a plains, and his commander, Phyrexian Censor. He passes. Alcadron draws for turn, plays an island, and Keleth, Sunmane Familiar, which enters the battlefield tapped due to Phyrexian Censor. He attacks Lobbert with Esior, which gets a +1/+1 counter from Keleth. Lobbert takes 2, and Alcadron passes. Lobbert draws, plays an island, and Unstable Obelisk. He passes. Wales draws, plays a swamp, and his commander, Tor Wauki the Younger, which enters tapped. Wales passes. Scooby-Drew draws, and enchants Tor Wauki the Younger with Spirit Link, so whenever it deals damage, Scooby-Drew gains that much life. He passes. Alcadron draws a card, and plays Nurok Stealth Suit, which he equips to Esior to give it Shroud. He attacks Lobbert with Esior, and Wales with Keleth. Keleth gives both of Alcadron's creatures a +1/+1 counter, and Wales doesn't block, so Lobbert takes 3, and Wales takes 2. Alcadron passes. Lobbert draws for turn, plays Quicksand as his land, and his commander, Mumuring Mystic, which enters tapped. He passes. Wales draws, plays a mountain, and attacks Scooby-Drew with Tor Wauki, so Scooby-Drew takes 3 commander damage, but his life total only changes for a moment. Wales gains 3 off of the lifelink. After combat, he plays Mercurial's Edict. Tor Wauki triggers, and Wales targets Keleth to destroy it, and gain another 2 life. Mercurial's Edict resolves, and Wales rolls an 18, so each other player sacrifices their commander. Wales passes. Scooby-Drew draws a card, plays Obsidian Acolyte, and passes. Alcadron draws, plays an island, and Honored Heirloom. He then plays Thraben Inspector, which creates a clue. He passes. Lobbert draws a card, sacrifices Aether Spellbomb to draw a card, and plays an island. Lobbert passes. Wales draws for turn, plays Vault of Whispers as his land for turn, and targets Obsidian Acolyte with Galvanic Blast. Tor Wauki triggers, so Wales targets Scooby-Drew, who responds by targeting Obsidian Acolyte with Stave Off to protect it. Lobbert uses the channel ability of Mirror Shell Crab to counter Stave Off. Quick aside here, Obsidian Acolyte would not normally be something worth fighting over, but Scooby-Drew has Wales' attention, and my hand is looking really awkward. If Scooby-Drew has a pro-black creature, Wales is much more likely to attack me, which I don't want. Back to the game, Scooby-Drew pays a white to give Alcadron's Thraben Inspector protection from black this turn. Wales attacks Scooby-Drew and gains 3 off of Tor Wauki's combat lifelink. He then pays 2 life to play Read the Bones and targets Lobbert with Tor Wauki, so Lobbert takes 2, and both Wales and Scooby-Drew gain 2. He scries both cards to the top and draws 2 off of Read the Bones. He passes. Scooby-Doo draws and plays Nightwind Glider, another creature with protection from black. Scooby-Doo passes. Alcadron draws a card and pays 4 for his commander, Esior, and equips Narok Stealth Suit to it. He passes. Lobbert draws, plays an island, and pays 6 for his commander, Mumuring Mystic. Lobbert passes. Wheels draws a card and plays Firebrand Archer. He then plays Blood Pact targeting himself. Wheels targets Alcadron with Tor Wauki, and Firebrand Archer triggers. Wheels draws 2 cards off of Blood Pact, plays a mountain, and Debt to the Kami, targeting Scooby-Doo, choosing the mode of having him exile a creature. Wheels targets Lobbert with Tor Wauki, and Firebrand Archer triggers. Wheels then attacks Scooby-Doo with Tor Wauki for 3 to put him to 9 commander damage. Scooby-Doo draws for turn, plays a plains, and pays 5 for his commander, Phyrexian Censor. He passes. Alcadron draws and pays 4 for his other commander, Keleth, which enters tapped. He then attacks Wales with Esior, which gets a counter from Keleth, so Wales takes 2. Alcadron passes. Lobbert draws a card and plays Behold the Multiverse, so Murmuring Mystic makes a 1/1 bird token with flying, which enters tapped, so he scries 2 cards to the bottom and draws 2 cards. He passes. Wales draws and attacks Scooby-Doo with Tor Wauki. Scooby-Doo doesn't block, so he goes to 12 commander damage and Wales gains 3 life. He then plays Infernal Idol, which triggers Firebrand Archer. Wales passes. Scooby-Doo draws a card and plays Amru Scout, which enters tapped. He passes. Alcadron draws for turn, plays an island, and attacks Wales with Keleth and Esior. Keleth puts a counter on each of Alcadron's commanders, so Wales takes 5. Alcadron passes. On his end step, Lobbert targets Firebrand Archer with the capsizing wave half of Sword Coast Serpent to return it to Wales' hand. Murmuring Mystic creates a bird. Lobbert draws for turn and plays Sword Coast Serpent, which enters tapped. He passes. On his end step, Wales sacrifices Infernal Idol to pay 2 life and draw 2 cards. Wales then targets Phyrexian Censor with Terminate. Tor Wauki triggers, so Wales targets Keleth with it. Scooby-Doo responds by targeting Phyrexian Censor with Cloud Shift to flicker it. Alcadron responds by targeting Keleth with Light of Hope, choosing to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Wales and Scooby-Doo gain 2 life off of lifelink. Wales draws for turn, plays a tapped Sulphurous Mire as his land, and targets Phyrexian Censor with Defile to give it -3/-3 this turn. Tor Wauki triggers, so Wales targets Murmuring Mystic. Scooby-Doo responds by tapping Phyrexian Censor to play Ramosian Rally to give his team +1/+1 this turn. So Phyrexian Censor survives as a 1/1, and Wales and Scooby-Doo gain 2 life off of Tor Wauki's damage. Wales then attacks Scooby-Doo with Tor Wauki, which puts Scooby-Doo to 15 commander damage. Wales passes. Scooby-Doo draws, plays a plains, and passes. On his end step, Alcadron sacrifices a clue to draw a card. Alcadron draws for turn, plays an island, and goes to combat. He attacks Wales with a flying Esior and Lobbert with Keleth. Alcadron's commanders each get a +1/+1 counter from Keleth. Lobbert blocks with a bird, and Wales takes 4. Alcadron passes. Lobbert draws for turn and plays Halimar Depths, which reorders the top 3 cards of his deck. He then attacks Alcadron with Sword Coast Serpent. Alcadron doesn't block, so he takes 6. Lobbert passes. Wales draws, plays a mountain, and Fiery Cannonade to deal 2 damage to each non-pirate creature, which Tor Wauki increases to 3. Tor Wauki triggers, so Wales targets Phyrexian Censor, in case Tor Wauki is removed in response. Scooby-Doo activates Armu Scout to put Bound and Silence on Tor Wauki the Younger, just in case as well. Tor Wauki's damage goes through, so Wales and Scooby-Doo each gain 2 life, and then Fiery Cannonade resolves, destroying all of Wales and Scooby-Doo's creatures, Alcadron's Thraben Inspector, and Lobbert's bird token. Wales then plays Firebrand Archer and passes. Scooby-Doo draws a card, plays Phyrexian Archivist, and passes. Alcadron draws, plays a plains, and Flaming Fist. He then attacks Wales with Esior, and Lobbert with Keleth, which puts a +1/+1 counter on Alcadron's creatures to make them 5/5s. Flaming Fist gives them each double strike. Wales is unable to block, and Lobbert chooses not to block, so they each take 10 commander damage, which eliminates Wales. Alcadron passes. In his end step, Lobbert sacrifices Unstable Obelisk to destroy Narok Stealth Suit. Lobbert draws for turn, plays a tapped the Surgical Bay as his land, and attacks Alcadron with Sword Coast Serpent, so Alcadron takes 6. Lobbert passes. Scooby-Doo draws, plays Suture Priest, and passes. Alcadron draws a card, plays a plains, and goes to combat. He attacks Scooby-Doo with Esior and Lobbert with Keleth, which puts a +1/+1 counter on each of his creatures, which makes them 6/6s. Flaming Fist then gives them double strike. Lobbert plays Keep Watch to draw a card for each attacking creature. Murmuring Mystic triggers to make Lobbert a bird. Alcadron responds by targeting Keleth with Benevolent Blessing to give it protection. Lobbert responds by targeting Keleth with Echoing Truth. He pays his Esior tax and triggers Murmuring Mystic for another bird. Alcadron responds by targeting Echoing Truth with Intervene. Lobbert responds by sacrificing Sword Ghost Serpent to play Abjure targeting Intervene to counter it. Murmuring Mystic triggers to make another bird. Alcadron responds by targeting Abjure with Foil to counter it. The stack finally resolves, so Alcadron's Benevolent Blessing enchants Keleth. Lobbert gets 3 birds and takes 3 damage off of Suture Priest, and Keep Watch resolves, so Lobbert draws 2 cards. Scooby-Doo blocks Esior with Phyrexian Archivist and enchants it with Chomino's Blessing to give it protection from blue. Lobbert is eliminated, and Alcadron passes. At the end of his turn, Scooby-Doo activates Phyrexian Archivist to put Bound in Silence on the bottom of his deck. Scooby-Doo draws for a turn, plays a Plains, and pays 7 for his commander, Phyrexian Censor. He passes. Alcadron draws, and attacks Scooby-Doo with his 2 commanders, which become 7/7 double strikers. Scooby-Doo chump blocks Keleth with Suture Priest, and Esior with his Phyrexian Archivist, which still has protection from blue. Suture Priest dies, and Alcadron passes the turn. Scooby-Doo draws a card, plays a tapped The Fair Basilica as his land, and a tapped Lawbringer. Alcadron responds by cycling Lonely Sandbar. Scooby-Doo passes. In his end step, Alcadron pays 5 for Gush to draw 2 cards. Alcadron draws for turn, plays an island, and targets Keleth with Emerge Unscathed to give it protection from white this turn. He then attacks with his 2 commanders, which become 8/8 double strikers. Scooby-Doo flickers Chomino's Blessing with Scroll Shift to draw a card. He's then left without the ability to play another spell, and can only block 1 commander, so he takes 16 commander damage, and Alcadron wins. Congratulations on your victory, Alcadron. Thank you for watching until the end. Please consider giving this video a like, and subscribe for more Pauper Commander content. If you'd like to support what I'm doing here, I'd love it if you became a patron. Check the playlists on this channel for more videos like this. Patreon shoutout to Hive Cryptid and Bill, Too Much Do. Thank you.